Hey y'all, welcome back. So I wanted to make a separate video for the Harlem Renaissance because I want to get into the many reasons it came about, as well as the many effects it had on Black Americans and really the country as a whole. The Harlem Renaissance is best understood as an intellectual, literary, artistic, musical, and overall cultural movement that celebrated Blackness in America. Before the 1920s, this type of Black pride or Black expression was really unheard of. Before we're able to examine what took place during the revolution that was the Harlem Renaissance, we have to understand how African Americans got there in the first places, specifically Harlem, right? So after the Civil War, we learned that many Black Americans were tied to southern fields as sharecroppers or tenant farmers. We learned about that during Reconstruction. Beginning in 1916, as job opportunities opened up in the industrial centers in the Midwest and in the North, in cities like St. Louis, Detroit, New York City, Chicago, African Americans began to move north in massive numbers in order to take these jobs. In particular, they played a really big part in manufacturing things during World War I, when others were going off to fight. Let's take a moment to not only analyze two Harlem Renaissance paintings here, but also just admire these two pieces of art. Both of these are images that illustrate the Great Migration, but do so in very different manners, okay? The one on the left is painted by Jacob Lawrence, and this one leaves an impression that Black bodies are on the move, eager to make, excuse me, eager to make new homes in the new cities that they're relocating to. Their dark skin is complemented by each shade uh, in the painting, but particularly by the bright pieces of clothing. Notice the painting doesn't focus on anyone's face in particular. This isn't because these individuals aren't important, but because this is happening, because what's happening here is a shared experience for many Black Americans during the period. They're all moving up together, not only to new cities, but in a certain way, moving up in society. Or at least that's the hope of what the painting is trying to portray. On the right, this is a painting by Aaron Douglas. This includes aspects of both the past and the future. Can you identify what they are? Take a second and just look at the painting real quick. Pause the video and see what you can see. If you notice, the bottom of the image has arms and chains that are reaching up. The rest of the painting is dedicated to strong and capable looking shadowy figures looking to a city in the distance. This painting says many things. One being that despite the pain and suffering that exists in the history of Black people in America, they as a people are always looking forward, thinking of how they too can find their place in this growing country, now in those industrial centers, places like New York and the places we mentioned. So, how do we get from a migration to an explosion of new art celebrating being Black? Consider what we just learned about Black soldiers in World War I from our first video. Coming back from a war in which they felt like they earned their keep, they earned their place in America, African Americans moved throughout American society with a new sense of pride and self-worth, a new swagger, if you will. They rejected the stereotype of submissive and beaten Black bodies, and embraced the idea of the new Negro. The new Negro knew that Black was beautiful and expressed his self-love through every imaginable form of art. Like I said, literature, poetry, musical, and artistic expression. So what I'm going to do now is post a few examples of Harlem Renaissance art that I want you guys to look at on the Google Classroom